Look at the horizon. 3 points glide, rotate, then vanish, as if air were optional. The map says Groom Lake. The rumor says Area 51. You want answers. So do we. First, let's see what the desert lets us see. Stand where radar goes quiet and stories get loud. We'll walk the fence, follow the lights, and listen for patterns that repeat when names don't. Tomorrow's aircraft, or someone else's handwriting on our sky. Wonder in, verdicts out. This is America Unexplained, Episode 1, Area 51.
Maps have borders. Deserts don't. Out past the last road sign, Groom Lake sits where official lines go thin. Before documents, there were fence lines, scanner whispers, and nights when 3 lights moved as one. Two stories chase the same horizon, secret test beds built a decade ahead of language, or borrowed blueprints from a crash no one will sign for. Some witnesses talk about silent lift, edges that swallow radar, turns that ignore the rules. Others say the rules changed. Boundary layer tricks, field effects, composite skins, the start of a new tech tree. The wish list uses forbidden words, anti-gravity, inertia games. But Nevada has a habit. What sounds impossible on Tuesday can taxi before Friday's sunset. We'll stand at the fence and let patterns speak. What repeats? What many see together? What leaves a trace you can time or measure? Everything else is a story. Some stories point the way. This is Area 51.
If this raised your eyebrow, subscribe and come back for the next clue. Tap like. My saddle depends on your approval rating. Drop your wildest theory in the comments. We read them on the trail.
Members get the map with extra coffee stains. Join us!
Chapter 1, The Whispered Map.
Out past the last mile marker, the desert stops explaining itself. Fence lines wander. A road goes straight and then forgets why. Groom Lake sits like a sheet of hammered glass, flat, bright, and impossible to judge for distance. Heat turns scale into rumor. Before there were documents, there were habits. Locals learned which ridge lines give you sky without gifting you to patrol headlights. Chasers picked pullouts by the shape of shadows at sunset. Scanner junkies wrote down call signs like birders, waiting for a voice to return. If a frequency went quiet at the wrong minute, the whole valley seemed to lean in and listen. The whispered map is not a drawing so much as choreography. Park here, kill the dome light, wait for the wind to change. Count heartbeats between far-off strobes. Read the lake's surface like a mirror for traffic you'll never hear. On certain nights, the runway glow wakes early, just a thin pulse against the alkali, as if someone beneath the horizon remembered us. And then there are the 3 lights. They move as one, like corners of a shape you can't quite see. They slide, they pause, they rotate 90 without banking. For a beat, your knees register a pressure change your ears deny. The air should carry something, whistle, thunder, even wind. But the night puts a finger to its mouth. Halfway through the arc, the lights cut. Not a fade, a door shutting. Notebooks became message boards. Message boards became pilgrimages. Advice traded like recipes. Which ridge the heat shimmer loves, where the mirage hides scale, what hour the range pretends it's empty. If you come back enough times, you learn the rhythm. A low drum you don't so much hear as agree with. There are explanations you can reach for. Night refueling seen from a strange angle. Flares that drift like ideas. Classified sorties flying profiles designed to confuse. Hybrid airships whose bulk masquerades as sky. Maybe, maybe not. The desert records the same scene again and again, as if it wants us to learn the beat before it gives us the melody.
The map expands in negative space, a new, no-through dirt road, a gate where there wasn't one, fresh gravel no rain could have smoothed. Someone leaves a triangle of footprints where no one admits to walking. You don't collect proof, you collect returns. Tiny echoes from things that don't want to be nouns yet. Some nights, the ridge gives you nothing, and that nothing is still information. Other nights, a high contrail scribbles the zenith, and a sun-caught glint makes the whole hillside argue. Phones come up, focus hunts, pixels bloom, and every frame misses by a little. That miss becomes part of the ritual, the offering the desert accepts in exchange for another look. No one leads this. The map is communal, handed down in directions and warnings, in coffee at 1 a.m. at the last gas for 50 miles. You hear the same story with different verbs from people who don't know they're repeating each other. Patterns accumulate. Claims multiply. Answers don't. So we stay with the path instead of the verdict. The whispered map isn't a claim. It's a way of moving. From mile marker to pullout. From fence line to ridge line. From 3 lights to the question they refuse to finish. What matters is what repeats, what stacks, what keeps returning to the same coordinates when the wind is down and the stars are honest. We won't decide here. We widen the circle on the map and step to its edge. If there's a melody, it waits in the geometry we keep seeing. 3 points agreeing with each other and disagreeing with gravity.
3 dots make a triangle. A silent triangle makes me walk faster. On to night triangles and silent flight. Chapter 2. Night triangles and silent flight.
Some nights, the sky doesn't carry objects. It carries geometry. 3 points hold their distance, like corners of a rigid frame, gliding as if the air had been negotiated in advance. The formation doesn't wobble. It doesn't hunt for lift. It simply moves. When it turns, it doesn't bank the way wings confess a turn. It rotates, as if the shape itself were the pilot. Witnesses try out verbs and throw them away. Hover isn't quite right. Drift sounds lazy. Glide feels too honest. What sticks is a behavior. A triangle that acts like one body. No strobes, no engine note. Just the sense that motion is happening under different rules. Rules that don't start with more thrust. Distance is the trickster. So is the desert. Depth cues collapse on a dark basin. Stars act like confetti. Mirage pushes scale around until familiar sizes forget themselves. And yet, clusters of reports repeat the same measurements in the human body. The moment your knees register pressure, the way your inner ear insists on a stop without a sound, the small delay when your brain waits for a roar that never comes. Some frames are generous. A long lens catches the 3 points crisp against a shoulder of mountain. A second clip agrees on spacing even as the formation turns. The triangle keeps its proportions. like a blueprint being carried across the sky by someone careful not to crease a corner. You can call it coincidence once, twice. After 10 nights, you run out of synonyms for the same shape. What would fly like that? The repertoire of earthly answers is long and interesting. Coordinated drones can hold formation with the indifference of code. Hybrid airships can hide in night air that treats bulk like a rumor. Boundary layer devices might tame edges, trade turbulence for obedience. A fat wing facing you dead on becomes a line. A set of lights on the belly becomes a triangle you swear is a hull. You can stack explanations like rocks around a campfire. And still, the silence sits there. Engineers talk about signatures: thermal, acoustic, electromagnetic, the footprints a craft can't help but leave. Silent isn't truly silent. It's a signature below your personal threshold. But the threshold of a valley full of listeners is not small. The chasers on the ridges build microphones into their nerves. When a thing crosses with only the stars to vouch for it, the absence is its own kind of mark. Profiles repeat. Long, steady traverse, short hold. A rotate that looks like a compass rose impatient to point somewhere new. Sometimes a near vertical rise to a height where the triangle dissolves into one star too many. Sometimes a slow settle that dares you to blink so it can leave while your eyes are closed. Air doesn't surrender easily. When it does, it makes terms. Silent flight asks for a price you can't see from a fence line. Maybe the price is paid by materials, skins that persuade air to behave. Maybe the price is paid by power, systems that push without the familiar shout. Maybe the price is paid by us, by how the night edits what we can and can't compare to anything we know. There are threads that pull toward craft we can name only later. Flight test tradition says tomorrow's aircraft will look like lies today. The F-117 was a rumor until it wasn't. Tacit Blue was a ghost until it gave up a photo. An entire family tree of edges learned to swallow radar before we had a word that didn't sound like magic. Perhaps this is one more branch, learning to hide its leaves. There are other threads, stories about borrowed blueprints, fragments with seams that aren't seams, metals that argue with magnets, rooms where the word impossible is taped to a wall as a dare. People who swear the sky over Nevada has seen handwriting that isn't ours. We don't choose a thread here. We lay them next to each other and notice how often they cross at 3 points holding steady, how often they predict a rotate instead of a bank, a stop instead of a circle, a rise that feels like a thought changing its mind. Field notes pile up. Plants with no wind help. Temperature inversions turn the basin into a listening bowl. Certain windows open when the range acts tired and the ridges act patient. If you time the valley right, you can watch the same behavior enough times to know when you're early. If you need comfort, the sky offers ordinary things on demand. Planes that admit they're planes. Satellites obedient to orbital math. Meteors whose exits are as honest as their entries. The triangle isn't ordinary. It doesn't pretend to be a star. It borrows the star's confidence and then refuses to be reduced to it. We leave the verdict at the gate. What remains is a pattern that points. 3 lights that choose each other first. Movement that makes its own dictionary. A silence that writes in capital letters. The chapter doesn't end with an answer.
It ends with enough repeated strangeness to ask a better question.
If that's a kite, someone stole the wind. On to the reverse engineering hypothesis. Chapter 3. The reverse engineering hypothesis.
The story that won't sit down starts with fragments, edges that look poured instead of joined, surfaces that act like skin one moment and like a circuit the next. In the telling, the pieces arrive in anonymous crates, with ordinary numbers and extraordinary chaperones. They visit rooms where the clocks have no hands and the windows have no view. Engineers in these stories don't speak in legends, they speak in properties. Density without weight, stiffness without seam, surfaces that flatten radar as if it were a rumor, panels that shrug off heat gradients like weather. A tech taps a sample with a gloved knuckle and frowns at a note that doesn't match any metal they know by ear. What could make a craft behave like the triangles we keep seeing? Reverse engineering partisans point to a ladder of possibilities. Not proof, a ladder. Metasurfaces and anisotropic skins that push currents and fields where air would otherwise complain. Lattice materials, ultra-light, ultra-stiff, turning mass into scaffolding that barely counts as weight. Field-coupled control at edges, shaving turbulence until the air behaves like it was asked politely. Power densification that hides thrust in signatures most of us don't carry detectors for. Sensing and control loops fast enough to keep a rigid triangle acting like a single thought. None of this requires magic. All of it would feel like it, until the spec sheet leaks. Then come the harder words, whispered, written on whiteboards and erased before coffee cools. Inertia manipulation, mass coupling, gravity, assists without gravity wells double asterisk. Nobody on record claims a working box that turns weight off, but the hypothesis survives because the sky keeps offering behaviors that suggest a debt paid somewhere we can't audit. If the bill isn't thrust, drag, and lift as we know them, what ledger took the charge? There are quieter branches on the same tree. Hybrid airships with skins that act like batteries. Boundary layer tricks that trade noise for obedience. Edge effects that make a large body look like 3 modest lights from the ground. A craft that presents less surface to sensors than to the air that carries it. Technology that wants to be overlooked until it is ready not to be.
Reverse engineering tales always include a moment when the part teaches the lab how to measure it. In some rooms, microscopes learn new adjectives. In others, magnets argue and then agree. A small rotation changes everything. A temperature you would ignore becomes a key. The lab discovers that the instrument was the mystery all along. Skeptics stand at the same bench and draft a different legend. Mislabeled alloys, manufacturing tricks wearing the mask of miracles, test beds that inherit secrecy from programs with names that will read like fiction when they retire. The crate's stamp means logistics, not crash sites. The room without windows is about contracts, not contact. Maybe. Maybe not. What keeps the hypothesis alive isn't a headline, it's the fit. The way certain materials science stories nest inside certain night sky behaviors. Rigid body triangles, right angle rotates, falls that don't fall. Paired with talk of skins that talk to air, frames that weigh as little as they look. 2 lines that don't meet on paper keep crossing in the desert. We park between them. The triangle doesn't tell us where it learned to be itself. The fragments, if they exist, don't tell us where they were first assembled.
But the idea that tomorrow's machines could be built from yesterday's mysteries is older than any fence line at Groom Lake. It's how we behave when something flies before we have the nouns to file it. If a blueprint was borrowed, the handwriting would show up in the margins. In habits, how a craft holds shape under turn, how it budgets heat, how it disappears from microphones without leaving your bones alone. We watch for those habits. We collect them like field notes. We let them pile up until a pattern suggests a family resemblance, without insisting on a surname. We don't resolve it here. We mark the overlap and keep the file open, because the next branch on this tree is the one people are told not to say out loud. You already know the word.
Okay, I'll say it. Anti-what now? If gravity has a settings menu, let's peek. Chapter 4. Antigravity and other forbidden words.
There are words the desert teaches people to whisper. One of them is anti-gravity. Not because anyone here has a switch that turns weight off, but because some nights the sky behaves as if someone found a new way to ignore a few old rules. Language balks. Lift is supposed to have invoices, wings, rotors, fans. Thrust is supposed to shout. Here, motion arrives on tiptoe. Turns happen without the confession of a bank. A fall pauses mid-fall, considers something, and leaves. The verbs we own don't always rent well to scenes like that.
Engineers carry their own forbidden dictionary.
They don't write anti-gravity. They write about mass coupling, inertial frames, field interactions. They ask whether a skin can persuade air to stop behaving like air, whether edges can talk to turbulence in a voice it respects, whether a field can borrow the job of a wing for a second and give it back before anyone files a report. Some ideas live on the lab bench. Boundary layer control that trims away drag until speed stops breeding noise. Electro-aerodynamic flows that push a thin breeze where no propeller turns. Magneto-hydrodynamic tricks that ask ionized air to choose a direction and pretend it wanted to all along. None of these cancel gravity. All of them could make gravity feel like it was put on hold from a distance, with a long lens and a hopeful heart. Witnesses talk about falling without falling, a descending triangle that stops like a thought changing its mind. The mountain doesn't echo. The valley's animals don't complain. The only note is a silence with edges. If there were a box that moved inertia around like furniture, we wouldn't hear it. We'd hear the implications. Acceleration profiles that look unbudgeted. Trajectories that don't pay the usual taxes. Turns that keep every cup on board from spilling. That box is a rumor without a spec sheet. The rumor survives because behaviors keep showing up that fit the outline of a tool we don't have vocabulary for yet. Skeptics answer with a stack of careful alternatives. Illusions of range and angle. Drones that choreograph indifference. Airships doing theater. Classified test beds, writing in a typeface not yet taught in public school. They're not wrong to stack those stones. The desert respects a good pile of explanations and still asks for one more. Whispers grow around materials. Metasurfaces that shepherd radar away like a host with a guest list. Lattice frames that turn bulk into geometry so light it clocks in as a rumor. Power systems that hide their footprint in bands most microphones don't claim. If such things fly, they would look like arrogance from the ground.
quiet, abrupt, uninterested in being photographed by a phone that wants a roar before it will focus. A watcher films 3 points that rotate in place, then depart vertically. The audio track is a dog deciding not to bark. The pixels wash a little, as if the lens can't agree with itself about what counts as motion. There's an old habit at Groom. Tomorrow's craft are loud in one domain and quiet in another, until the trade flips. What begins as radar arrogance becomes acoustic humility, then thermal discretion, then something else. If there's a path that trespasses into the forbidden words, it likely walks through neighborhoods we already know. Edge control, field shaping, energy storage that doesn't apologize for its ambition. We can write plausible recipes all night and end with the same sentence. No resolution. The value isn't in the answer. It's in the outline of a problem that keeps drawing itself over Nevada. 3 lights that behave like a single intention. Descents that pause. Rotations that prefer right angles to arcs. A silence thick enough to hear yourself guess. So what do we do with a wish that might be a plan in disguise? We document the habits of the sky, as if the sky were trying to be understood. We compare nights. We time the pauses. We map the ridges that produce patience. We keep the word antigravity in its box, and still admit that the box is interesting. If there were borrowed blueprints, this would be where the handwriting shows. Not in headlines, but in habits. The way a hull negotiates air, the way weight behaves in a turn, the way motion refuses to be loud when loud would be easier. If there were no borrowed blueprints, the habits still point to a future that makes present tense vocabulary look small. We won't claim the forbidden words. We won't close the file that keeps inviting them. We'll carry them forward the way the watchers carry extra batteries, quietly, because some nights run long.
Okay, mystery. If you're opening windows, point us to the right ridge. Keyholes, windows, and the unnamed hangar. Chapter 5. Keyholes, windows, and the unnamed hangar.
Every mystery has architecture. Out here, it's built from ridgelines, time windows, and patience. Call them keyholes, narrow places where the desert briefly lines up sight, sound, and chance. The old hands don't chase everything. They chase conditions. A north breeze to push mirage out of the basin. A temperature inversion to turn the valley into a listening bowl. A moon that rises late, so the first hour is truly black. They tune out the drama and watch the dead space between signals. Windows open in odd ways. A new NOTAM scrapes across the map like tape you're not supposed to peel. A satellite pass empties a corner of sky. A second pass asks you to look somewhere you never have. Scanner chatter goes from chatter to punctuation. One stray call sign returns after months, and suddenly 2 trucks on a dirt road make sense together. The keyhole has a clock. Some windows are written on the ground. Fresh gravel on a spur no rain could have smoothed. A pad light that learns a new habit. On at 20 past, off at 31, on again at 44 as if it remembered a rhythm. Footprints that form a triangle no one admits to walking. The desert telegraphs in negative space. And then there's the hangar that never gets a name. From a distance, it's no more mysterious than a warehouse with a great view of forever. Up close, if up close means 3 ridges away with a long lens, it behaves like a character in a story. It ignores whether the other hangars respect. Its doors don't yawn for show and tell days. When lights come on inside, they make the wrong kind of shadow. Edges too clean, brightness with discipline. Some nights the unnamed hangar teaches you restraint. A truck approaches and turns away. A crew door opens and closes on empty. You film reflected nothing for 20 minutes, and discover later that the only frame you trust is the one where a dust devil gives you scale. Other nights the field notes like to rhyme. The pad light's new habit returns. The ridgeline that's good for contrails gives you a contrail-less pass. 3 points do what 3 points do, and the black rectangle on your screen refuses to leak a single pixel more than last time. The hangar keeps its proper noun to itself. Watchers build rituals because rituals keep you from inventing things that aren't there. Tripod first, focus second, exposure third. Frame the mountain shoulder as a ruler. Write the time on your knuckles so you don't trust the phone's idea of true north. Compare against the star that will still be there when the clip is done. When enough eyes keep returning to the same few keyholes, a different kind of map appears. The map of where to look when you don't know what to call what you're looking for. It's not proof, it's choreography that outlives a single night. The desert has a tradition. Rumor, then shadow, then photograph, then a paragraph in a manual nobody admits owning yet. Have blue was a rumor until it learned to cast a headline. Tacit blue was a fable until a museum had to make room. If history is a teacher, tomorrow's confession is usually late and very matter-of-fact. Program X evaluated configurations Y and Z. By then, 1,000 field notes are a chorus. The unnamed hangar gets a name and somehow loses a little of its gravity. But tradition cuts both ways. Some things stay rumors so long they become climate, background weather for night people. They show up as habits, a rotate instead of a bank, a stop instead of a circle, a silence with edges. You can file habits without filing conclusions. You can recognize a family resemblance without declaring a family tree. What do keyholes and windows give us? Enough repeated strangeness to compare nights to each other. Enough discipline to keep us honest when nothing happens. Enough geometry to ask better questions when something does. The unnamed hangar may never choose to be introduced. The windows might keep opening on nothing that photographs well. But the act of looking, practiced correctly, is its own kind of evidence. The kind that doesn't close files, just organizes them. If a borrowed blueprint exists, this is where it would leave fingerprints. On schedules that prefer unusual clocks. On doors that don't share the base's sense of ritual. On aircraft behaviors that fit a grammar we did not write. If no blueprint was borrowed, this is still where tomorrow's machines learn to be themselves, in front of witnesses who can't yet name them without sounding superstitious. We end where we began, with a horizon that looks ordinary until it doesn't. The keyholes will still be there next week. The windows will choose their hours without telling us why. The hangar will either open or it won't. Our job is to keep the map of patience current. We leave the verdict at the gate. We carry the habits forward. We admit the part of the desert that belongs to rumor and the part that belongs to work.
If the door won't introduce itself, the comments will. Okay, folks, what's your number one Roswell question?
Missed a chapter? Click Watch Next and pretend time travel is real.
Share this with a friend who loves blueprints and spooky basements.
Bell on, lights off. Visit our Timeless Tales online shop.
Thanks for riding along with us. Next stop gets stranger. See you there.
The desert keeps its grammar. Long silences, short verbs, and sentences written in light. We leave with a map that isn't made of roads, keyholes, windows, ridgelines, hours that behave. 3 points that choose each other first. Rotations that prefer angles to arcs. A hush with edges. We didn't close a file tonight. We numbered it. We labeled the habits that return.
If there's handwriting in this sky, ours or someone else's, it shows up in how motion behaves when names refuse to help. Carry the patience forward. Tripod first. Focus second. Exposure third. Compare against the mountain's shoulder. Let the ordinary teach you the baseline. Planes that confess. Satellites that keep appointments. So the unordinary has something to stand against when it arrives. Next time, the map points east, to a story that learned to live without an ending. Different desert, same rule. Wonder in, verdicts out. See you in New Mexico.